Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's good to see you all on this beautiful Friday morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you may be. Bob says it's 73 degrees in Kansas City. Feels like Colorado. Yep, that's exactly what it is here today. It's going to be perfect weather. Well, it has been a while, seems like anyway, since we have talked about what's coming in our near future. At least it looks like it's coming. The age of robots and AI. And as you know, I'm very excited about that. And I think all Christians should be excited about this, but we need to think through how to prepare for it because there will be some significant implications for us. So I've been pondering this, as you know, a lot, and thought it'd be worthwhile in light of some things that came out this week to ponder it together out loud. So on Monday of last week, my family was in Washington, D.C. As you know, I was out. We went to Virginia for a wedding, and then we took a day and spent in D.C. We didn't have a lot of time, but it's amazing, how much you can pack into a few hours if you really put your mind to it. And I was the whole weekend, I kept sort of combining in my thoughts old technology and new technology, and I was just amazed again at what man is doing. Think back to the very beginning. God puts Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and he says, cultivate it, make it grow, make it prosper. And I know I covered this in my core responsibilities of manhood series, which, by the way, if you are a man and you haven't watched that series, I highly recommend it. It will give you some things to think about biblically as to what we as men are to be doing. And it's not that it's exclusive, against women altogether, or that women don't have a role to play in this or part of this. But as men, it seems like right now we need to be reminded that it's good to be a man and what our responsibilities are. Anyway, I cover in that that this idea of cultivating the garden is to be productive. It's the first thing that God gives man to do. I suppose you could say reproduce, but then rule the earth. And that means cultivate it. That means be productive. That means make it better, build civilization, pursue technology, etc., etc. And in Genesis 4, we see man doing that. Now, the main story in Genesis 4 is Cain killing Abel. But then as the chapter goes on, after God punishes Cain and so on, we see the beginning of metalworking and music and animal farming and crop farming. Man is doing exactly what God gave Adam to do. He's pursuing knowledge of how this world has been designed to rule the earth. And even Adam's sin against God and Cain's sin against God and others' sin against God did not in any way mitigate or change what God put man on earth to do. Now, it's harder because part of the judgment is that work is now harder. We have things against us. However, Jesus came to turn it all around, and he is. And so think about the progress we have made. So as we were in D.C., so many old and new expressions of this were just right there on display. If you go to Virginia anytime and you haven't been through Monticello, I highly recommend Monticello. That's Thomas Jefferson's home. And do some research on Jefferson before you go and then after. We did this years ago. We took our kids on a Revolutionary War tour kind of thing. And went up and down the East Coast, and I remember then being fascinated, and I learned a lot more after that, and it was great to be back even just for a couple hours. But in addition to being a brilliant thinker, Jefferson was quite the innovator. He created a copy machine because he had to reproduce so many manuscripts of things that he created this machine where he could put a pencil in it, several pencils in it, and he could write with his hand once, and it would trace on multiple copies at a time. He created a little civilization there with his slaves, which, setting that evil aside for the now, he was remarkable in his innovation and architecture, and he basically built a little city, self-sufficient town there on his property. So anyway, so lots of that, and the architecture, and he drew up the plans for Monticello, I think largely while he was in the capital, but sent back to have it built over time. Anyway, so there's that. And then as we're at the mall there, where all the memorials, the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Memorial and the World War II and Korea and Vietnam and all those are, I was just struck again that massive sculpture of Abraham Lincoln is so impressive to me. All of my art talent is in music. I have no talent in visual graphic arts, painting, drawing, and sculptures and that kind of thing. So for someone like me, I'm just astounded that somebody had the talent to take huge chunks of rocks and hammers and chisels and those kinds of instruments and form it into a shape that looks like Abraham Lincoln sitting on a chair, and it's stunning. And the Jefferson Memorial is stunning, and all of those things. So I'm viewing all of that and thinking this is old talent, old technology. Even the architectural, the drawings and the building of the structures around there in DC are so impressive. And you can't help but walk around and look at these structures. The White House, for instance, and the Capitol, I think, doesn't seem like we build edifices like that anymore. So that's old technology, if you will. But at the same time, because we didn't have a lot of time, we got those Lime scooters. Have you done those? They're all over the cities now, right? Oh, pretty much all of them, where you can get on the app and you can purchase, a whole chunk of time, and then ride these scooters up and down the streets and the sidewalks to get from place to place. So think about it. We only had a few hours to spend in DC, but because of these scooters, we could go so much faster than walking and get around to all these memorials by lunch. And the technology, the software, tracks you, and it tracks how much time you're riding. And then they have the no-go zones. I forget what they called it, but near all of the memorials, there would be a place where the bike would just shut down, and you had to push it because they wanted, this is where most of the people are going to congregate, and I think probably out of respect as well. So you could fly up and down the sidewalks to get from this memorial to that memorial, but as soon as you got close, it shut down. I think, what great technology that is. And it has improved. The last time that I rode the scooters was like 3 years ago. I forget even where I was. My son and I and some others in the family were in the city, and we decided to take the scooters, and they didn't have that kind of control like they do now. And then we went and visited, we flew in and out of Dulles Airport, And very near Dulles is the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, Part 2. So the main one is there with all the other museums in DC, and there's a lot of cool stuff to see. But there's also, it's just a lot of riding. I'm not a museum guy by and large, but the one out by the airport, it was fantastic. They had the Blackbird there. I think it's the fastest piloted plane ever. It's been out of commission for like 25 years. So, way back when, it was the fastest plane there was. If I remember correctly, it could fly from LA to DC in an hour and 5 minutes. And I'm looking at this huge plane. It was basically huge jet engines with a cockpit. It was all engine. And that's why it could go so fast, and it was used for reconnaissance and so on. And they had the space shuttle there, the Discovery. I was a kid. Some of you were like me, a kid in school, elementary school, when the space shuttle came into being, and remembering back to how astounding that technology was. We're going to fire this thing up into space like a rocket, and it's going to land like an airplane, and it's going to be reemployable. As you got close, I'd never seen it up close like this. And all the heat shield panels, it looked like patchwork junk. On video from afar, it's very sleek looking white, giant plane kind of thing. But then when you get close, all these heat shields, it looks like they just sewed a bunch of cloth together or something. And it's not, it's sort of ugly in one sense. And it's massive. It's huge. And thinking that human beings built that thing. And of course, now you leapfrog to where we are now. And we are shooting rockets up into space regularly and landing them, catching them, and reusing them. We are surrounded by so much advancement in technology, continuing to do what man was created to do, to cultivate the garden, to rule the earth, to fill it and rule over it. And it's happening at such an accelerated pace now. We need to be aware and thankful and plan for it, as I see it. Amy says, our low isn't even cooling off to 73, triple digit season. Are you in Texas? Well, have fun with that. Chain Gun Massacre says, finally caught up. All of Revelation finished, and the first of the Corinthians series finally live. Well, welcome. Good. Only half my family has disowned me. Well, stick with us. I'll try to get you to lose the other half as we go. William David Buck says, Monticello is great. He drew up the plans while in France. Oh, is that right? I thought he started it. Well, anyway. Daniel says, I use AI almost daily now to help with some intelligence calculations. Excellent. So there was some, as you know, Trump and Elon Musk were over in the Middle East this week. And, oh, man, politically, what a trip that has been. And I think the ramifications for our future just from that last week are going to be pretty remarkable. That's not what I intended to spend our time on today, so I won't, but it seems like a genius economic move, what Trump did. And it also could lead to tremendous peace. If we get intertwined with them economically, then the incentive to not go to war with one another seems higher to me. So I'm encouraged by all that's going on there. Anyway, but Musk was there, and he gave one presentation that I saw several clips of, and he reiterated some of the things he said in the past. That coupled with, did you see the dancing Optimus this week? The agility and subtleties of that video impressed me greatly. Now, I think we're still a ways away from that kind of performance being executable for everyday tasks, but the progress that Optimus has made in less than a year, it's fast. And so, and I'm talking just on the mechanics, set aside AI, the brain for a minute, just the body itself. As they continue to improve the design, it moves like a human, which, by the way, I can't help but notice, and I'm sure you have thought about this as well. As Musk and other companies are striving to build what everyone is saying is sort of the next most important machine for humanity, they're designing a human. They're designing a man, which, if I think of Romans 1 here, I think, and Psalm 19. I want to ask Elon, like, you are designing this perfect machine that may very well increase the productivity of the world exponentially in ways that it's hard to imagine. And the best design you can come up with is to copy the human body. And don't you think the human body was designed? Of course, he would say yes, he's simulation theory, but that only moves it back a step. Somewhere there has to be a designer, a creator, who is not himself created. I mean, rationally, logically, that is the only rational conclusion. Every other conclusion is self-defeating philosophically. And he knows that. At some point, some being simply exists. And he created everything else. That has to be what is true. And he created human beings, and our most intelligent, advanced minds who are designing machines to be the most productive vehicles we have are simply recreating humans. I just have to laugh at how obvious this is, that God created the perfect machine, so to speak, in the human, and we're recreating those to be more productive. And I think it's wonderful. It's great. Daniel says, you wish you had my confidence. Well, keep an open mind. Maybe you'll get there. But watching Optimus dance so freely and smoothly, I was quite shocked that they had made such advance in the physical robot. And then AI, separate from the robot, continues to improve. And I think the greatest challenge is going to be for the AI, for the brain to control the body to maximum benefit. And I think we're quite a ways away from that happening. Elon says, pretty soon you're going to be able to say to Optimus, go wash my dishes, load the dishwasher or whatever, and it'll learn and observe. And maybe, he certainly knows how far along the most advanced AI is in a way that you and I don't, because he's doing it and it hasn't been released yet. But at least in my experience of AI, as impressive as it is, getting the two to work together seems like still a ways away, but I can foresee it happening. Now, I think we've talked about this before. I don't think what they call AGI is possible. I know Musk does, and I hesitate to say that I draw a conclusion the opposite of what he does on technology. Rationally, philosophically, what they've described AGI to be, I don't think it's possible. But that's another time, another story. But I do think great achievement and productivity will occur, where I can foresee us getting to almost a data situation. Any Star Trek Next Generation fans here? Data was the humanoid who basically is what we think Grok or ChatGPT will become, put inside Optimus. I mean they foresaw where we're heading here, and Data was this human-like humanoid robot that had access to all the information that existed. And so he was a great tool, a great benefit to the humans and other species in Star Trek that were doing things. Kind of like a C-3PO from Star Wars, only more advanced in the body part. Well, I think we're heading that direction, and I can foresee it. And when you think about having worldwide this army of machines capable of doing the things that humans can do with an AI brain, productivity is going to go beyond what I think we can comprehend. I think Star Trek, Star Wars, in some ways, is not that far away. Megan says, "What is AGI?" Yeah, artificial general intelligence. So basically, right now, AI is built on large language models, LLMs, and it's assimilating, all the data that's there in written form, digital form, and then observing thinking patterns through writing and analyzing movements and things, and then learning basically to recreate those thinking patterns. It's all learned and pattern recognition. The theory is that eventually AI is going to learn to think. Now, some of this comes down to definitions. How do we define thinking? But that they are going to go beyond their programming. And again, language, terminology, to have a serious discussion here, we would have to first agree on our terms and definitions. But to put it very simply and imprecisely, there's a belief that AI will eventually become basically what we call conscious, where they will think independently, like I think humans do. Now, some don't think humans do, but I think we do. So they will go beyond being, the world's greatest supercomputer to actually thinking independently. Now, I don't believe it can happen, because it sure seems to me like everything AI accomplishes must be programmed in. Even as it programs in, consider all these variables and then make a decision, that's still programming, which you and I don't. We think, we abstract and ponder new things, which I don't see AI ever being able to do. Anyway, that's maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't think so, but anyway, where all this is heading, where we know this is heading, is just mind-boggling. John says, I retired from U.S. Air Force in 2003, but I bet what military is doing with AI is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, they're always way ahead of the general public, right? So who knows what they're doing. Daniel says, we will arrive at our current velocity 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 20 seconds. Is that a joke there that I'm missing something on? Dean says, we best find a niche market that can't be performed by artificial intelligence, right? Yeah, so for the rest of today anyway, let's bring this back a little bit to the nearer future. All right, let's think about that. So if this is all going to happen, which sure seems to me like it is, we do need to be planning for the future. again, let's take something that we've discussed in the past: full self-driving, the robotaxi, Tesla. What I expect we will see in the very near future is all of the car manufacturers making their own electric vehicles that have the same camera system that Tesla is using. And then they will license the brain from Tesla. Nobody that I'm aware of is remotely close to a full self-driving software to Tesla. They've got the data from years and years and years, and they're collecting it exponentially quickly. Waymo, it's based on different technology. It's way too expensive. I don't think Waymo is going to get there. Plus, their data is based on something different. So it sure seems to me like Tesla has the lock on the software side of full self-driving for the foreseeable future. But other manufacturers can make the hardware and license it. If that's true, then in the near future, like 5 to 10 years, we will all, I think within 5 years, all of us here, at least in the US and in most developed countries, will have the ability to tap on our phones, or hopefully by then, the AI on our phones will be enough. We can just summon a car by talking to our phone. Hey, I'm not going to say her name because she'll do something here, although she's pretty useless these days. The Apple AI. Anyway, just summon a car to show up, pick you up, take you where you want to go, and you can do work and whatever, take a nap, whatever, as you're getting from point A to point B. If that's true, will we need to own our own cars? Now, I'm going to ask you to set aside your conspiracy theory pessimism. I know the arguments. This is just a setup where the government can control everything. Why would we want the government to ever have a shut-off switch and all that? Yeah. I mean, that's not foolish, but it's also been said about everything for as long as I've been alive. And so far, amidst all the corruption of the government, they haven't turned our lights off every day. So at least for now, for this conversation, let's set aside the potential downside, okay? Let's just think upside. I'm not sure I'm going to own a car in 5 years. Now, again, maybe I'll own a gas-powered car to, as a risk management, to a hedge against the government control. So I'm not dismissing that altogether. But just on the positive side, why would I need to own a car when I can summon one to come pick me up and take me somewhere for pennies, dollars, that kind of thing? Well, if that's where this is all heading, then if you're thinking you might need a new car, my cars are old. That's my MO. I buy old cars for cash and I drive them in the ground typically. Our Toyota Sienna just turned 20 years old. It's got, almost 300,000 miles or something on it. And I'm going to need to replace that one of these days. We got the minivan because we had lots of young kids. We don't have lots of young kids, although we're grandkids are coming around now. But I would like one of these days to upgrade my wife's car. That's the one she drives mostly. I have a 2010 Xterra, which I love. It's great for Colorado. It's running great. But I could see in just a few years thinking, I don't need to own a car. So how much money would I spend on a vehicle in the near future if that's where this is heading? Or do I buy a Tesla and rent it out? I think that's what a lot of people are missing out on. If full self-driving is authorized in all of our cities and you have a Tesla, then you can let it be making money for you 24/7, except when you need it. So you block out, I need it at 9:00 on Thursday, boom. So nobody else gets it then. And I know people don't like that. It's going to it's going to require a change of mindset. we have car ownership, a mindset around that, but that will change, it seems to me. So anyway, when I say we need to prepare for the future, that's at least something to consider. How much money would you invest in a car if that car is going to be obsolete in a few years? Daniel says Lucid is doing good things for their autonomous driving capabilities. I don't know much about Lucid, but it's hard to imagine any company. Maybe I'm just ignorant here, but it's hard to imagine any company that has any chance of catching Tesla on the data. Yeah, Dean says Tesla's a data acquisition business that also makes cars. Yeah, it's an AI or robotics company too. But yeah, exactly. I guess you could say that's a data acquisition business that also makes robots, right? Yeah, I think you're capturing that pretty well. Daniel says 10 to 15 years, maybe 5 years seems too soon. Could be wrong to not own a vehicle. Yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows, right? But if full self-driving and robotaxi is launched in June or July in Austin and a couple other cities, which it sure seems like by now, if that was an overly optimistic prediction by Musk, that we'd be getting some of the delay conversations now. Shareholders would certainly want to know that it's going to be delayed, and there's been no announcement there that I'm aware of. So if that launches and is successful, and they can prove quickly that full self-driving is far safer than human beings, which I think it already is. I think there's no way in my mind that it won't be, I keep saying exponentially safer than you and me driving. Will there still be accidents and deaths? Of course. But as far as statistically and pure percentage wise, there's just no way that you and I can drive as safely and make decisions as quickly and perfectly as AI can, it seems to me. So if that gets launched and is proven successful, say by the end of the year, they've got enough data. Now it's just a matter of production and unleashing all the Teslas that are already out there to now become robo-taxis when you're not using the car. I don't know. That's why I say it sure seems like that could flourish in a hurry. But we'll see. We'll see which one of us is the better prophet there, Daniel. Eddie says, I live in a rural area where I think we will be significantly behind these things that maybe become the norm in larger, more urban suburbs. Yeah, that's possible. Possible, yeah. And that's often the way it is with technology. But John says, but what are 95% of the people going to do to make a living? That's a great question, isn't it? Yeah, learning how to supervise. This is there's going to definitely need to be human supervisors, even when we get Optimus up and running and other robots. Which again, I think that's a little further behind. I think the car situation is imminent. I think the robots, they'll probably be doing repeatable tasks in factories soon. But in terms of you and me all having robots in our houses, that's probably a little further away than some are estimating. But yeah, we've got to give that thought. We've got to prepare for that. And what I expect long term is there's going to be so much productivity and prosperity that we won't have to work for our basic needs, which will free everyone to be more focused on creative things and art and community building and that kind of thing, which I think it'll be wonderful. Between here and there, probably some bumpy rides for sure. And as we try to figure this all out, and there are a lot of factors, a lot of variables that could alter that timeline even more. But yeah, that is what I think we all need to be thinking through. There are probably very imminent jobs that are at stake. I was talking to someone in IT the other day in the help center, help desk kind of work. It sure seems to me like right now AI would be far superior to most of the people that I talk to in customer service whenever I have to call in about something. To have AI know everything about the company completely and be able to articulate exactly the right answer, as opposed to humans who so often seem like they don't really know and they have to go look it up. And most of the time, I think the research that I've done before I call them, that I already know more about it than they do. That happens quite a bit. So I look forward to that. That's pretty imminent. But those are exactly the kind of questions that I think we need to be asking. What kinds of financial decisions am I locking myself into long-term financial decisions that may be upended by advancement of technology sooner than later? Career choices, training, trying to identify those jobs like you're talking about okay, is AI, robotics, is that going to eliminate my job anytime soon? Can I begin working on skills that will enable me to be a manager, supervisor of those industries, of those jobs? Is there something altogether different? I mean, I can't imagine robot plumbers and carpenters, HVAC, the trades, the traditional trades. I can't imagine robots being able to do those jobs soon, because there's just so many variables. Manufacturing, working in factories where, again, it's repeatable and programmable, that makes obvious sense to me. And learning things like loading the dishwasher and some things in the home, but just seems like the trades are much further off. Now, maybe I'm mistaken, but as I think through it, that's what seems likely. So anyway, our time's getting short. My point is, I am, as you know, so excited about how the upcoming decade or two is going to reveal God's goodness to us. We've seen so much in our lifetimes. I talk about this all the time, right? Electricity, indoor plumbing, the fact that I can talk to you all over the world because of ones and zeros. And, glasses. Think about the time before we had glasses and progressives and bifocals and trifocals and all that, and contact lenses. I mean, the advancements are all around. God is heaping blessing upon human beings to make life more enjoyable and more pleasant and prosperous. He's fulfilling what he set Adam and Eve out to do. We took a detour, but now we're back on the path, and he's just pouring out blessing. I am so excited about what's coming, but we need to be wise and plan for it. And so anyway, I urge you, dig into this. Oh, the last thing I want to say, I meant to say this earlier. We'll talk about this in some other time, but education. Look up the Alpha School. I think it's in Texas. Anybody from Texas here that can verify that? I think it's in Texas. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in the South. Alpha School. As I understand it, they have something like 2 hours a day of personal learning where each student, these are kids, they have their headsets and they have a personalized AI educational program. And then the rest of the day, the quote school day, they are spending in community together, learning all kinds of skills for life. It looks amazing, like wonderful, like what education should be. And as we see those kinds of educational approaches proliferate, Daniel says, yeah, it's in Austin. oh man, just adds to my optimism of how the future is going to be. So look that up, and I'm excited for my grandkids to have opportunities like that. All right, I better wrap this up here. Let me. There's Sana in Holland. Welcome. Good to see you again. Hope you're having a great trip there. Yeah, Uber. People keep investing. Bill Ackman, I think, just was it him? Somebody made a no. They did. He did Hertz rent a car. I don't know. Some of the investment choices some of these folks are making, I'm thinking, what do they know that I don't know? Realistically speaking, lack of jobs is going to create a morbidly overweight world population. Maybe, or maybe we will, thanks to technology and ruining the legacy media's credibility, maybe we will become healthier. So I don't know if that has to be the case. Eddie says this kind of AI future would be a utopia if the world is filled with regenerate people submitted. Yep, and that's yeah, I agree. And if you've ever heard me talk about this in the past, I think there are only two options. I think either my understanding of Scripture is correct, and what will accompany the technological advances is the Holy Spirit sweeping through every nation and the nations streaming to Zion. So yes, either that's going to be it, or we're all doomed. I don't see how there could be an in-between. So I'm with you there. All right. Well, have a great weekend, and we'll be back Monday to talk more about 1 Corinthians and resurrection. Take care. Grace and peace to you.